Today we're joined by Goodale, who's going to talk to us about breaking the glass ceiling into product leadership. So Caitlin, I've known you for a while, but for the audience, could you give us a little intro, please?
Of course I can, Kirsty, thank you. So hey everyone, I'm Caitlin, or Kate. I'm the head of user experience at DREST, which is a mobile fashion, the world's first luxury mobile fashion game, I think you could call it, but we'll get into that. And yeah, I've been the head of user experience there now for a year and a half almost, and I have a career kind of across both the games industry and general product design, more in the design path, but kind of breaking into elements of kind of product as well. So yeah, super excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. So breaking the glass ceiling, why is this topic so important to you, Caitlin?
So I think it was one of the first things that I started to realize when I got kind of like further into my career in the kind of product space and the design space, was that you would see, especially out of university, a lot of kind of like a very diverse crowd of people studying and then starting off in the industry. But as soon as you got on to kind of like senior designer, so senior product manager levels, it really became much more kind of straight white male very quickly, which I thought was such a shame. And I knew so many amazing and successful and inspiring women in product leadership around me. But it just got a lot harder to see the further I went on. And so especially as I kind of grew my career and the choices that I made, I kind of made that a bit of mission for me to both kind of like seek those people out that kind of came from more diverse backgrounds or weren't your kind of standard person to see in product direction, and also tried to lift people up below me or who were kind of more junior than me as I was going along. And when we look at this from a design perspective, you know, having diverse levels of thought, especially as you get into that kind of senior leadership and direction level, is so important for making sure that your products are kind of being designed for real audiences and diverse audiences. So I think the further I go on, I kind of see, how important it is, even as we go.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. So it seems like there's quite a lot of challenges that women are facing in this world. What do you think like the major ones are, and whatever they are, how do you even go about challenging them and overcoming them?
Good question. So I think to me, one of the big challenges or the thing that everyone has to face is kind of moving from that individual contributor role to a management role and a direction role, and how you make that transition. And again, a lot of what I say might be generalizations, and I'm happy to discuss it. But I would say, like, very often in society, women are socialized to do this kind of what could be called like a glue job, like making sure people get along really well, making sure, oh, this person knows when this thing's going on, and oh, this person's not super happy, so I'm going to make sure that I talk to them and make sure that they're getting on with the team. And that is, I would say, almost like it's one of the core of design work, right? And making a team that functions. But I've found in some companies and in some industries as well, that work won't be as respected for when it comes into kind of promotions and leadership, and those people that are kind of primed to take that next step into a more directorial role. So I think there's a little bit of that, how we socialize women and girls like kind of throughout their lives. And then I think, honestly, one of the biggest struggles, like I alluded to earlier, is having good role models. And there's that, maybe it's a little bit cheesy, but there's this phrase like, what you can't see, you can't be. And I think if everyone you see above you, or everyone that is your manager, your boss, is kind of a very certain sort of way and might have a certain way of kind of like reacting to situations and management and leadership, it can be hard if you have a slightly different skill set or a way of just a background to actually see how you could fit in and how you could take that next step.
Very good point about being what you can see. Harder said than done to get women into leadership, I think. How can companies start to achieve that?
That's the $1 million question, I think.
I know.
And I think there's both kind of like things as a company you can do internally that can help to kind of to grow that, but also things that we specifically can do as individuals. I mean, through some of the companies that I have been at previously, I've been able to meet a lot of amazing women and kind of diverse leaders through these sort of employee engagement networks. When I was at Microsoft, I think I met some of the most amazing women that were in totally different parts of the business. And I probably wouldn't have ever got any FaceTime with if I hadn't, kind of gone to these employee engagement things. But I think a really important part is for people in that kind of first manager leadership role or kind of middle management to really think about what they value in what they value in their employees and what they want to grow. For many of us, especially in startups, you might get kind of dropped into managing people, maybe without a huge amount of experience or a huge amount of coaching there. And so a lot of us will actually fall back on the patterns that we see from people who've managed us previously. And especially in a product space, very often you might have only been managed by men or kind of a certain sort of person. And so I actually think for all of us, it's really good to take that step back and think, okay, well, what is my role in management and in kind of helping the next generation of people? And like, what skills do I value there? Are there some ingrained biases that I have in the way that I'm thinking about what good looks like, or kind of what someone stepping up to the plate looks like and what I value there? There's so much I could talk about this topic. So I rambled a bit there.
No, it's interesting. It sounds like everything that you're saying is like a spinning wheel. You have to like put more effort in it to see more women in leadership, and then you've got these like things that you've learned as a woman that you need to get rid of. And like being a communicator is a good thing, of course. I think that's very important to be able to communicate. But yeah, everything feeding into each other there.
I would say I think it's not necessarily stuff you have to get rid of, but it's about kind of like appreciating diversity as well as kind of like recognizing like excellence. So that example that I gave previously of like glue, this kind of glue work, there's a really fantastic article about it a woman wrote a few years ago. And like in your like, again, probably kind of like patriarchal, like old school companies, and this is, probably a few years ago now, but that sort of kind of like team working and getting people kind of onto the same goal, that stuff just literally wouldn't be evaluated the same way in a performance review, because it's harder to say, oh, this person's written 500 lines of amazing code that's given us a 10% increase in conversion on this page or something, right? That's like very quantifiable, when sometimes that sort of work that, again, women are socialized into, like through society, is kind of a little bit harder to see the actual value that brings to a business, when it is just as important, I would say. I think a big thing there to me is just like, recognizing and having, as a kind of broader company structure, recognizing all of those things that go into delivering fantastic products and making sure that they are actually kind of all respected at that same level. So it's not about changing yourself to like, fit into that company culture, but it's actually making sure that the entire company recognizes what goes into great kind of product leadership.
You're right. We shouldn't get rid of that at all. What am I talking about?
That's all right.
Brilliant. So talking about getting those women into leadership positions, like doing great, embracing their skills, embracing the diversity, like what practices can companies put in place to foster and encourage that at their company?
Ooh. So I think one really important one that I always advocate for is promoting internally. And I know that can be like such a struggle. Like, I've totally been there. But the amount of times I have seen, in design teams, games companies everywhere, this kind of idea of like, oh, we really need someone to come in and drive this thing forward. We need someone to like step up and, be that like visionary. Let's hire a guy from somewhere else. It seems almost like that is the kind of like underlying, and of course there's absolutely value in that, but very often, and again, a lot of people, especially if you don't have those kind of like role models to look up to, or you don't know what leadership could look like, and you've not got that experience, people might actually take that back foot and not step forward for that opportunity. And if the company doesn't even offer it up to them, then they're never going to take that next step into leadership. For me, like when my first kind of like lead designer role on a project really was because there was no one there to step into it, and I kind of needed to take on that responsibility, when honestly I probably wasn't prepared at the time. I wasn't experienced enough, but I kind of had to really sink or swim in that situation because someone needed to do it. I know I might have made like a few mistakes in there. In the end of the day, the project got shipped and it did really well, and that's the sort of thing I wouldn't, if that company had just said, oh, we need to get someone in from outside to do this, I would have never had that opportunity and grown those skills and made those small mistakes that have allowed me to be, I hope, a better design leader in the future. So I think absolutely like that kind of promoting internally and like fostering a culture of giving people a chance, even if they might not on paper have exactly what's needed for that next step in their role.
Yeah, great advice. Speaking about like giving opportunities, getting there, breaking that glass ceiling, we touched upon actually one thing you said there, I think at Microsoft, where you had the opportunity to talk to other women and other departments. And I think like internally, women supporting other women is super important. In a few of our previous episodes, I'm sure you'll see, Caitlin, we've really touched greatly on like mentorship and also like internal, like Slack groups within our company. What do you think women can do to support women at work, regardless of like their role, their title, their department? What can we do?
Oh, great question. I think, treating each other like human beings. I think that would be the standard, right? But at the end of the day, like men, women, anyone kind of across the gender spectrum, we're all just people, and we all have different cultural backgrounds, different experiences with previous roles, experiences in one job, and experiences of what we do as our craft, right? And I think kind of allowing yourself to like recognizing those different backgrounds in some of the ways people might react to situations or the ways people might approach a problem. You have to recognize that people come at something from different perspectives, and also that that's a strength you can bring. You don't actually have to get everyone kind of working in exactly the same way as you do in order to kind of make a project work. And as for women specifically, you've said that, previous episodes have covered the mentoring thing quite a lot. And so I won't go into too much detail about that, apart from the fact that I find it really valuable. But it is something I would say that, again, this is a bit of a sweeping generalization, but as someone that manages like men and women right now, and has done a significant amount of mentoring as well, I would say there are some women especially who struggle to kind of ask for that next step, or to like put on paper, here's where I want to go and here's how I'm going to get there. And so something that I found particularly valuable is, when I'm mentoring a woman, especially ones that have less career experience or might have had a negative experience with management previously, or, like haven't been in such a supportive environment. I actually try to push them towards thinking about what direction their career is going to go in and what they want next, even if it's something outside of the company that I'm currently in. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you've been socialized to never really ask for or demand that next promotion, that next pay rise, that next something, it can be hard to just immediately come out and say that. So that's something that I try to do, either through kind of like formally within work, or just by opening up that conversation of starting to talk about, okay, well, what is like your 5-year plan? You don't need to know it in super in advance, but like start thinking about, as a designer, as someone in product, like what sort of things do you want to work on? Are you driven by working on really cool projects, really cool technology? Do you want to learn management skills? Do you want to kind of start kind of learning how to direct others? Because even if people don't know that like total next end goal, if they have at least an idea of the direction, I, as another woman in the business, can start to look out for those opportunities that they sometimes might not have the confidence to take themselves, or just kind of they need that slight extra step to get that going.
Yeah, I love that way of thinking. And also just like writing stuff down, like brainstorming, like where do I want to go? Where will I be in 5 years? Good question. Now, thank you so much, Caitlin, for all your insights. Before you go, we do have a curveball question that we've been throwing out. We know you're a bit of a gaming queen. So if you were to pick any gaming character that would symbolize your career experience as a woman, what would it be?
Oh gosh, this one's really difficult. I was thinking about this beforehand and I couldn't it's the closest example I could think of is maybe like the Pokemon trainers, the female Pokemon. Okay. I think she was called May from the most recent one of the most recent ones, because hear me out, not running around and speaking to people that have totally different experiences of you, the different like Pokemon gym leaders, right? Experts in their fields, whether it's like fighting type Pokemon or, you know, electric Pokemon. That's like going and speaking to your director of engineering versus your, you know, like head of HR. Yeah. But then generally the theme of, although the storylines could be very different, the theme generally tends to be a let's all work together and you know, like save the world. And if you imagine that in more of a let's all work together and actually ship this release on time, that very much ends up being my job as the Pokemon protagonist slash head of user experience, right? Taking together all of those disparate backgrounds and experiences and directions for the product and making sure they all work together as one. So that's what I would see it as.
I love that. Everyone should be the best Pokemon trainer out there. Totally.
Gotta catch them all.
There we go. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been great.
Thank you, Kirsty. Happy to be here.
Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.